glad to be back. I'm very excited that Banff is upon us again. I'd like to take just a few moments to thank and acknowledge some of the people and partners who made this festival possible this year. Thank you to our sponsors for your generous support. Thank you to our grand patrons, Shaw Media, the Canada Media Fund, Telefilm Canada, the Government of Alberta and Alberta Film, Bell Media, CBC, and Rogers Communications. Thanks to you all, and thank you to all of our sponsors for being great partners and friends to Banff. I'd like to thank our board of directors, its wonderful chair, Barb Williams, and all the members of our various advisory boards all throughout the Banff program. The generosity you show, the time you give, your advice, your help, and your support is truly appreciated by me and the festival team. I'd also like to thank all the industry leaders who took time to participate in all the facets of our program this year. Without you, there literally would be no program. So thank you very much for being here. Congratulations to our nominees and winners of our international program competition, which truly features the best in digital media and television content from around the world. And congratulations to our Special Achievement Rocky Award winners, who we look forward to celebrating with for the rest of the week. And of course, thank you to all of you for being here, our attendees, for coming to celebrate and be at Banff 2013. This has been an exciting year for Banff as we introduce our new Company of Distinction program. And for this, our inaugural year, that honor is being awarded to CBS Corporation. CBS executives, producers, talent will be joining throughout Banff, and through their fascinating master classes, sessions, awards, and keynotes, you get the great opportunity to really know the CBS Corporation brand and see firsthand why they are so deserving of the designation Company of Distinction. I'd like to thank the CBS team for being a great partner. We've really enjoyed our collaboration. We're very excited you're finally here, and we'd like to warmly welcome you to Banff. This year, we're also very proud to present our Media Strategy Summit, our Next Media T3 Everywhere program, the co-production and co-venture business market, a thriving development executive program, cutting-edge sessions and master classes across kids and animation, factual entertainment, and scripted content, star-studded Rocky Award galas, fantastic networking opportunities, and much, much more. We're also thrilled, of course, to present this afternoon's Canadian Media Leaders session with our wonderful partner, NBC Universal. Thank you to NBC Universal and for our media leaders for being here. Unfortunately, Paul Robertson couldn't be with us this afternoon due to personal reasons, and we're sorry he's not here. But thank you to the media leaders who are here. This is truly one of the highlights of Banff, and we look forward to your insights very shortly. Banff strives to be the world's most important market for the development, production, and monetization of content. And I truly hope that's what we'll be able to deliver for you over the next few days, along with some fun and some stunning views. So you really couldn't ask for more. I encourage you to take advantage of all Banff has to offer. Meet as many people as you can, attend as many things as you can, and learn as much as you can. And then at the end, if you have any time left in your busy schedules, we would really appreciate your feedback. Tell us what you think so we can work on making Banff work for you. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for allowing me and the whole Banff team to celebrate the culmination of our labor of love, the Banff World Media Festival. It's now my pleasure and privilege to call up Val Creighton, President and CEO of the Canada Media Fund, and a proud Banff board member, to say a few words.
Last year I forgot to do my job on first year as a Banff board member, so I got spanked really hard at the first meeting by Robin Mirsky. So it was actually great. This year I'll try to be better. So good afternoon, everyone. All of us at the CMF are just delighted to be here with you to kick off the 2013 edition of the festival. I thought these really intimidating and important four, now I hear three guys in those navy suits, would be up here, so I could tease them a bit, but as the woman in the dressing room. Oh, they're in the back. They're in the back. They're kind of shy. They're a little nervous about doing this panel, so we'll get them to come out shortly. So we all know it's a time of unprecedented change as media evolve and consumer habits change every day. I can't think of a better place to discuss and dialogue around the future of this innovative industry than here at Banff. But just before we start, I'd like to take a moment. I learned very sad news this afternoon of the passing of Alan Sawyer on Saturday. Alan was a great thinker, had a very unusual and innovative mind and approach to his worldview. He was a good friend to many of us. We'll all miss him, and I'm sure you join with me in sending condolences to his wife Kim and all of his family. So when you go out to the CBC reception tonight, please raise a glass to celebrate Alan Sawyer's life. So the CMF's job is to foster, promote, develop, and finance the production of Canadian content and relevant applications for all audiovisual media platforms, the Canadians, and ensure that Canadians and the world audiences are engaged with them, embrace them, have access to them on all platforms. Since 2010, when the CMF was created, I know I don't usually use notes. I know you all know that. It's kind of awkward with the microphone. Since 2010, when the CMF was, it's my new plan to be a good girl from now on. Since 2010, when the CMF was created, it's contributed $1.1 billion to more than 1,700 projects, triggering an astounding $3.5 billion in production activity. Canada's creative excellence is reflected in world-class dramas, animation, documentaries, films, experimental and innovative digital media. On the international front, Canada was the country of honor at MIPCOM, where we celebrated our content and our talent and supported co-production connections. We also partnered with the CMPA to feature Canada in co-productions at the latest Real Content Market in Brazil. And at home, the CMF, Telefilm, the CRTC, the CMPA, and many, many other partners are collaborating and seeking ways to promote the success of our content. I hope you'll join us as we present an update of our plans to promote Canadian film, television, and digital media in Canada and other markets. And we'll be unveiling a new brand to help position the content with audiences around the world. This week, Stéphane Cardin from the CMF will provide a workshop on applying to the CMF, and will also speak at the multi-platform Backpackers Masterclass. Catalina Braceno will showcase innovative Canadian productions that combine content and technology that redefine viewer interactivity that the CMF supported. She'll unveil new and recently published industry research and discuss with other panelists co-production opportunities between France and Canada. So enjoy and engage everything you do over the next 72 hours. Have a great time. And to moderate the first panel, please welcome Marcia Liederman, entertainment reporter for the Globe and Mail.
And here come the guys in the suits, not all navy. See?
I did.
At the far end of the stage, these guys don't need much introduction, but I'll give a short one. We have Kevin Krell, President, Bell Media. Kevin, nice tan suit. In the middle, Scott Moore, President, Broadcast for Rogers Media. Scott, I like the gray. I'm big on gray. And you'll notice I have all the colors represented in my outfit. And next to me is Doug Murphy, President, Chorus Television. I agree, Val was just talking about this interesting time in television. I think there's no question this is a golden age. The content has never been better. It's so exciting to watch TV, better stuff on TV than in the cinema, but at the same time it is fraught with challenges and all kinds of hurdles and rapid fire change that broadcasters are dealing with, and content creators as well. There's a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to get right to it so that we can have 10 or 15 minutes at the end for audience questions, which we will definitely do. I wanted to start with the upfronts this week, where I think it's fair to say social media played a starring role. some of them anyway, and it really is too bad we're missing Paul right now, because I did want to talk to him about Shaw's plan to embed programming in tweets. But maybe we can start there and talk about what the potential impact of something like that can be, because I often think of promoted tweets as maybe not as effective as the grassroots tweets from viewers. But how could embedded content help promote your product, help drive eyeballs to the actual product? Scott, do you want to take that?
Sure. I don't think you need to have embedded tweets for television content. I think the fans, the viewers are all watching our content, and I'm a believer that social media over the next few years will be the savior of linear television, because it is the virtual water cooler. Instead of watching on PVR 3 weeks later, people want to be engaged with the content as is. But I also think that the embedded or programmed tweets or other parts of social media need to be a part of the overall content ecosystem. I think producers should be spending 5 to 10% of their production budgets on making sure that they have that content ecosystem so that their characters, their stars are tweeting, they have Facebook pages, they have content that can live online, that make people want to interact with their characters in the shows. And I think that will make appointment viewing even more so.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking before about appointment viewing, because with VOD, with other platforms, we were getting away from that. But now with social media, appointment viewing seems like it may be making a comeback. Is that what you've noticed?
Well, we were chatting earlier about social media and where is the there, and we see on certainly some shows. Vampire Diaries comes to mind. There's a high level of tweeting on those shows because of the audience, and something like 50% of the audience is tweeting while the shows are on. Is a younger targeted audience member, of course. But there's no doubt that, to Scott's point, that the opportunities to use social media to drive eyeballs to your linear services, I think, a big one. The question is a threshold. How much you want to invest in it as a broadcaster, and what's the tipping point? I think that's one of the things we're all trying to figure out. Is you don't want to overinvest in it, but you do want to acknowledge that it's an opportunity.
Well, Kevin Kroll of Bell Media is going to be studying this, right? You announced that you'll be working with Twitter to
Yeah,
I
I think there'll be so much experimentation, and I do think that the user experience of following the cast or following the content during the show is fascinating. One of the things that I found frustrating is when I sign up for a show, I wind up getting bombarded with tweets all the time, and I've signed up for it to follow some of the show Twitters because I just wanted content during the broadcast. And so I think that that's an interesting experimentation. I'm a bit into, and I follow 60 or 70 Twitter accounts, and I'm in a bit overload already. And so I think that the experimentation will be interesting. We decided that at first we wanted to focus on learning from the audience engagement and measurement of audience reach and engagement and ad effectiveness has been, pretty. It's been pretty unidimensional with BBM, whether it's Diaries or it's People Meters. It's been, pretty much that platform for decades. And I do think that social media gives us, and all types of IP-delivered content married with social media gives us a lot more interesting way to measure ad effectiveness. One of the things that we all wrestle with is the money that has moved into whether it's banner and display advertising or pre-roll video, but the Facebooks of the world, the YouTubes, they've taken a lot of ad dollars and a lot of the marketing budget. Yet, when I talk to CMOs, they all feel like, man, TV, there's nothing that represents my brand better, nothing that gets my message across nearly as effective as television. But I just don't get the kind of feedback. I just don't get the information. I don't have an ROI report the next morning on my desk. And that's what we have to do with TV, and I think social media is one of the tools.
TV will, I believe, will still be the best place for advertising to advertise. And I feel really strongly about the Facebook thing. I think Facebook is a terrific recommendation engine. I think it's a great place for people to interact. but I think producers and networks are crazy if they put their own original content on Facebook and spend money against Facebook, where Facebook is selling all the ads. We should be using Facebook to drive back to our broadcasts and drive back to show sites where we sell the ads and where we're able to monetize them.
But just if I could just ask a question, because the notion of measurement is one that's pretty essential. And now, what with Rogers and Bell and broadcast, it seems to me that the solution is sitting right on the stage in terms of finding better ways to measure audience delivery, demos and such. Is that something that the future will bring?
Well, I'd love to take that for a second because
You're very suited. You're friend with you.
Wait, you're taking over the technical support
No,
and moderating?
Yeah, I got the blue suit shot, so I earned my way.
Here we are in an age where social media you can see results absolutely instantaneously. And television measurement in many of our biggest cities is on diary. You might as well be chopping it up on some tablets. This is crazy. And I used to sit on the BBC or the BBM board, and there's still resistance to going to personal people meters. And even the PPMs are not 100%. But for people to be using diaries to say what television shows they've watched, it's the dark ages. And we're trying to evolve the industry, and we're using that technology. We as a group, and I'd say Kevin, you and CBC and Shaw need to get with all of the media groups to say, let's make this, let's at least bring it into the 1950s.
Well, jumping ahead from the 1950s, I don't know, it might be mine. Is it my hair? Oh no.
It's not my hair.
Apparently it's... You should have a talk show.
We're just getting started.
I know. Well, Kevin, let's talk about another thing that you mentioned, that you announced at the upfronts was the Bravo in real-time mobile services. How important is this TV Everywhere initiative for Bell Media moving forward? And for all of you, I'm really curious about that.
Yeah. Well, it's critical. I mean, the industry's been talking about TV everywhere, both in the U.S. and in Canada for several years. There's no question that consumers want to engage with content, both on any screen, mobilely, anywhere they are, on any network, whether it's Wi-Fi or it's a wireless network, in their home, out of their home. And on-demand viewing is more and more time-shifting and things of that sort. So, setting aside, an understanding clear and obvious about the consumer demand, I think there's a lot of time spent on what's the right business model to serve it. And then, frankly, it took a long time to get the content rights aligned. You take a channel like Bravo might have 10 or 15 different suppliers of content, including our in-house production, but you take CTV and you could be at 50 or 60 different suppliers to fill that schedule. So it took us a few years to get to the point where we could have, and we wanted to have not just on-demand catch-up content, we wanted to add the live streaming. And I think that that's really, especially you take a sports, a TSN or a Sportsnet, you take the news that's delivered on conventional channels, and the live streaming will be a really strong value proposition. I know I can remember when I was a teenager wanting to get a TV jack in my room and fighting with my parents. Those days are long gone now. With the tablet, the kids take it, and so we'll be able to enable them to stream their entire program guide as we roll it out. So we're very excited about it. We are very committed to an authenticated model, which means that it'll support the existing ecosystem of distributors and Canadian producers and broadcasters. But I would say that I think we should spend some time talking about direct-to-consumer and the disruption that that's causing and kind of the pros and cons. I would say right now we're very committed to authentication, but keeping a really close eye on alternatives.
Well, you talked about actually Rogers introducing a streaming service. What can you tell us about that?
Well, first, I think the pattern in the States is to go with live streaming networks. NBC announced theirs last week. I think you'll see that across the board over the next little while. It's important that the advertising community start to recognize that when they buy a show like Modern Family or a show like we experimented with it with Sportsnet, with the Sportsnet World. We're doing an over-the-top search direct to consumers and doing live streaming there. I think it's going to do that with Sportsnet in the not too distant future. So, and on the SVOD, we had an interesting discussion about it before. What will be the future of SVOD in this country? Rogers has said that we really want to do one. The interesting debate will be, do we do one as an industry, or will you want to buy Bell SVOD to get the Bell shows, Roger SVOD to get the Rogers shows, and a Shaw one to get the Shaw ones? I'm sure Course will be there too. If you aren't related, no, you're separate. But if you were related, you're separate, probably on the show. You get one thing.
There's more comment. Can I make a comment on the team here?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I think Kevin's comment, which I think we never lose sight of, is all with the customer value proposition. Is we don't continue to provide perception of value enhancements to our subscribers for all the money that they pay us. They were going to be in a world of hurts, whether that's HD or TV everywhere or live streaming or whatever, or even making it more easy to search the EPG. Search and find is a key part of the opportunity for all of us. That's an essential part of our job, because we know we've got great content, but it's not always easy for our audience to find it. So I think that's a critical piece.
Yeah, I think the biggest disruption in the industry hasn't been time shifting, it hasn't been on demand, it hasn't been binge viewing. I think the biggest disruption that is just beginning is the economic and the customer experience impact of bypassing the traditional distribution ecosystem. And so I'm often struck, $8 for Netflix is not a low-cost channel. That's an extremely expensive channel. We spend probably 3 times as much on TSN to produce and procure the rights for a channel like TSN. The hours of viewing are much, much higher than the hours of viewing in Netflix, and yet we get about 40% or 35% from the consumer or from a subscription fee of what Netflix gets.
Nevertheless, the perception is that Netflix is a great deal compared to $200 for the cable.
Yeah, but go on and actually use the service. I subscribed to Netflix for I think 20 days. I didn't find a single thing that I wanted to watch. And I was paying $8 a month for it. Now that they're getting into original content, they have less original content on Netflix than we have on FX. And FX is up to the digital dial and would cost the consumer about 25 cents. And the other thing that I feel really strongly about, and I've been saying this for 2, 3, 4 years, that the people in this room should not want Netflix to succeed, because Netflix is not a part of the Canadian broadcast ecosystem. They have no Canadian content requirements. They don't have to spend money with Canadian producers. We're giving back to the Canadian broadcast ecosystem. Netflix is buying library, second, third, fourth window from some Canadian producers, but they're not out there actively promoting Canadian shows the way all of us are.
Does it not infuriate you that the regulator does not require that? If I were you guys, I would just be standing on the top, well, I don't know if you can stand on top of the building and wave your arm, that might not be politically expedient, but it must be maddening. Who wants to take that on?
Well, I think before we go there,
you got nothing in front of the regulator.
Before we go there, the Netflix, the point that I think that you had made, I'm not sure that, there's a lot of great content, and there's original programming that is being made that's pretty compelling, but it's just, you mentioned 25 cents, or roughly, I mean, none of us are disclosing our price sheets, but, you're talking about dimes and nickels for channels like Discovery, FX, Comedy Channel, and these things that spend a great deal in excess of what is being spent. So the challenge is, and I don't have the answer, but the really big challenge is, what Netflix did is they simplified everything. One plan, one flavor, one thing. Not a lot of customer care calls, billing to your credit card, no truck rolls, no set-top box, and that's taken a ton of costs out of the distribution and the delivery system. And I think that's the most profound learning that I've seen. I can tell you, in our recent hearing, one of our distribution partners thought they had a great idea. Let's make Bell disclose how much they charge for their channels. And I'm all for that, because I think people would be shocked. We get less than $6 for all 30 of our channels compared to what Netflix is getting at $8. The rest of it is either distribution costs or distribution margin. So I think that's the interesting part. As for the regulator, I think the system is going to continue to evolve. I believe that Netflix is having a significantly greater impact on the industry, on consumption habits, on the cost of our content, on the advertising revenue that we're generating. I think a significantly greater impact than is currently appreciated. And I think that if it was appreciated, we had a meeting of the minds with the regulator, I think there might be more of a sense of urgency to level the playing field.
Yeah, I think it's about sort of changing the narrative and engaging in a different kind of conversation. If you step way back and you say we spend $6 billion a year on Canadian content in our country, we have a sustainable competitive advantage amongst all of you in the room and the broadcasters. We make good shows. Canadian shows are driving significant ratings on all of our networks. And yet it feels as if it's hard to have a discussion when we need to have it about the evolving digital landscape, how it's impacting our collective business here. And the conversations are sort of inward focused, not outward focused. So we're debating on genre exclusivity, and yet we're not talking about fragmentation and OTT and how that potentially is coming after the I think the very proud and sustainable ecosystem we've built. So I don't know how we begin to have that conversation, but I do believe it's essential that we get more forward-looking, more outward-looking as an industry with the Commission, and have a real sort of an ongoing dialogue that's not sort of staccato and continues to go fluid, and that I think is a big opportunity.
You're all competitors, but are you finding yourselves to be more aligned and in a position where you're in alignment or need to become in alignment to fight off this growing threat that you all mutually face?
I think as much as we compete, I would say this: the appetite for the consumption of great entertainment is almost boundless. I think that each of us are just trying to make great television and serve our viewers, and I don't find that we steal ratings from each other as much as the pie either gets bigger or smaller on any given night of viewing. And so, I think with all that, you started the panel by talking about the golden age of television, and we look at now, there is more great television out there than we have time to watch, and it's astonishing with all the media fragmentation that's happened over the last decade. Canadians still watch 5 hours of television a day, even though they've added, 4 hours of internet, and they're starting to add a lot of online viewing. And so there's this boundless appetite. I think we do compete, but raising the water level for all of us and for the industry as a whole should be far more what we're obsessed with. I think that raising the water level of our industry will serve each of us a lot better than trying to fight for a share point or two.
Yeah.
Sure, and I think you're right. Not only are we in the maybe we're past the golden age of television, but we're in the golden age of the television show. More people are watching television shows than ever before, whether they're watching it on CTV, City, Global, or Chorus, but they're also watching on our VOD services. They're also watching online, but they're watching TV shows first and foremost. And I think it's a terrific time to be an independent producer. But as much as we may be competitors, I think our biggest competition truly is Netflix. I think our biggest competition is Facebook. For content, it's Netflix. For advertising dollars, it's Facebook. If we, as a group, are supporting the Canadian industry, creating great content that people are going to watch, I think it's up to us to continue to deliver it in new and better ways with the consumer in mind, and we'll beat Netflix.
The upfronts, I think, was a great example. There's more great shows being produced in the U.S. and Canada around the world than ever before. The amount of investment is massive because the economics are there. So I would maybe rebrand what you said as golden age of content, because and our job is to find ways to deliver that content whenever and wherever and however we can monetize it, and we can make more money doing it. Hallelujah. I mean, that's the business we're in. And that gets to, I think, another critical issue for our industry is, yes, there's more great content being made in the U.S. in particular, but also around the world. But that means you have to spend more money on it because it's hard to get access to it, which means scale is important. And this is something that we feel very strongly about, that in order for the Canadian ecosystem, the broadcast system, to be able to be putting more money back in original programming, we need to be able to have the access to the good big driver shows that come out of the U.S. and other parts of the world. And that means we have to be able to have a larger base to advertise those investments around. I remember one of my favorite shows this year was The Fall. Was it The Fall? Was it yours? So great show. I mean, really kind of daring show. But what I've noticed as a broadcaster was I also saw it on Space like a week after it was on CTV. But that's smart, right? That's how you monetize that big investment. And because you've got those assets to drive that across, it makes sense for you to buy it. And that's I think what's important about the notion of it's not a bad thing to get bigger.
I think I've heard somebody say that before. I forget where I heard that, but the one thing I'll say that outside of following, when we talked about U.S. content, we had our upfront presentations last week, and it's one of the most fun times of the year, and it is a real reflection, even though it started as a conventional thing, but I think you see all of us talking about our entire portfolio for sure. And we were able to place side by side Canadian talent, Canadian programming, mixed in with the U.S. programming, and it was seamless. They were indiscernible. We ran our comedy and our drama video packs, and we had almost 50% of what we aired in our comedy and our drama video packs for the fall season was Canadian. And again, they were indistinguishable as you went from the U.S. shows to Canadian and back. And the talent that participated on the stage, we had a fabulous turnout of talent, and it was indistinguishable. And so that is pretty uplifting and encouraging. But and then I'll let these guys comment to that, but I do believe something to explore is the cost of content keeps going up. There aren't these typical Moore's Law efficiencies of producing content. It just gets more and more expensive. And yet we have a real revenue crisis in our business. And I think that's the thing that I've been wrestling with.
Yeah, it seems to me the Canadian scripted show, if Twitter had a starring role at the upfronts, then Canadian scripted content was a supporting character at best, depending on which upfront we're talking about.
But I think the level of quality of Canadian content has never been stronger. And we're really proud of the fact that we're doing more Canadian than City has ever done before. The quality, as the quality of Kevin's stuff and CBC stuff and Shaw stuff just looks tremendous. We've done a comedy called Package Deal, the first multicam that's been done in Canada probably since the King of Kensington.
Except for Mr. Young.
Great. Mr. Young, sorry, adult multi. Oh, of course, yes. Of course, sorry. And the show, the Package Deal just looks so terrific. We're really thrilled with it. But right now for Canadian producers, the U.S. has discovered Canadian producers. Everybody's spending more on it, and it's a golden time for independent producers because I don't think if you walk down the street, walk down Queen Street or walk down Bloor Street, if you're an independent producer, you can actually avoid getting hit on the head with a bag full of benefits money because it's just all over some of the offices there. Unfortunately, you go past the Jarvis Street, the bags aren't coming down as much. We're going to have to buy something soon.
10 years ago, we were down here, the conversation we had with the U.S. broadcaster about a Canadian co-production, you roll their eyes and they go, oh my God, seriously? So I do think that, we're getting phone calls all the time from the big U.S. networks and the cable networks and, interesting creative talent who are saying, I want to work with you guys. And it really is a thrilling sense to get recognized finally after all those years.
And something else Kevin said, I think it's really interesting to point out. The costs do keep going up. And that talent costs money, and we're all looking for it. But, and we'll talk about terms of trade a little later, but there should be ways that production companies are becoming, I would hope, more inventive to do things that are less expensive. I still see crews out on the street, 200, 300, 400 deep, and that you don't need to do things always the traditional way. When we met with John Landgraf, the president of FX, the other day, the pilot for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was done for $200. $200. As a matter of fact, when the bill came in to the FX accounting group, they thought it was $200,000 because they couldn't believe it was done for $200. Because it was done with handycams and SLR cameras. Now, they've upped the way they've produced it, but to produce a pilot or to get things onto some of our websites and to do things creatively and cheaply and have them grow into big productions, that may be the way of the future.
Really, when you're competing against, when Netflix is your biggest threat, and they've got House of Cards, which costs
It's
not
one show.
$200.
It's one
Yes,
show
but-
that they've got.
But a lot of people are talking about it, Kevin Spacey. I mean, how do you compete with that, with the production dollars you have, the Canadians have at their disposal?
You know, you can spend a lot of money on a hit show, or you can spend not a lot of money on a hit show. A hit is, we're all in the magic sort of alchemy of how do you make a hit. And, I don't know that it's big, writing $100 million checks is going to get you to the finish line all the time. And I think you hit the nail on the head. This is maybe something for all of us in the room to think about. I know in our studio in Atlanta, we're always looking to find ways to work more efficiently. We've got to take costs out of our business. So, and that goes to the independent production community. As the budget presents us, it goes to us looking at how we run our businesses. I mean, the best place to put money is back on the screen. So to do that, we got to find ways to kind of be more efficient on how we run the business from top to bottom. And I think that's a big point.
Spending big bucks doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to have a hit. We saw in LA this year a lot of $6 to $8 million pilots. Many of them were really bad. Doesn't mean that you're going to get a hit. Our instruction this year was only about the which we hadn't thought of. We were buying in bulk before now.
You talked about scale earlier. I mean, how helpful has vertical integration been for you guys in terms of competing in this crazy environment?
I truly, hand on Bible, I'm not sure that vertical integration has done a whole lot. It's the size of Bell is very helpful. So the size of Bell, the cash flow and the other businesses allow us to make investments, allow us to do things and ride through the cyclicality of especially the advertising market. I think that at a nominal level, when you launch a new channel, you kind of know, all right, I got one distributor down that's going to carry it, but there's no one distributor that can make, you really need to be in 40% of Canadian homes to make a channel work nowadays, and one distributor is not going to deliver you anywhere near that. So, I mean, I believe that horizontal integration, the scale of specialty channels, I think having a paid portfolio, working on some direct-to-consumer and some SVOD windows, having the variety of windows that you have, and having a conventional megaphone to promote everything, I think that horizontal integration has been more impactful than vertical.
And I think vertical actually, in some ways, put us at a disadvantage with the consumer and the regulator. Because they look at Bell and Rogers and say, you guys are billion-dollar companies. Why are you whining about whether City makes money or not? Well, but as a media company, we're still expected to make money, and we should. We're not the public service sector. We're there to make money. But they see billions of dollars of profit on the wireless side and think, oh, they don't need to make money on CTV in the city. Well, of course we do. So I think that, from the regulator standpoint, the consumer standpoint, sometimes they think, oh, these guys should be doing this stuff for free. Well,
We've also, not to debate the wisdom of the vertical integration rules. Really, what happened is, frankly, all of the things that you would say that you would leverage vertically got taken away in the vertical integration rules. The NFL just did an exclusive deal with Verizon Wireless, which was a really big exclusive deal in the U.S., and that's going to drive Verizon Wireless phones. DirecTV drove a lot of their success by having exclusive NFL content in the U.S. for many years. And so we have to look elsewhere now. Those types of strategies have been neutralized.
Doug, I was going to ask you if your Chorus's place in all of this makes it more challenging for you because you don't have that same advantage, but it sounds like they don't have an advantage.
Well, I would say that they have maybe a little more of an advantage than we do because we're kind of in this interesting spot, of course. We are, we're sort of a pure play broadcaster and production company, I guess, as opposed to having a distribution kind of owned platform. And so one of the ways that we've found our affiliate revenues are going to be where they're going to be. We'll negotiate the best we can get. We're already starting to see some subscriber melt. Anyway, we talked about that earlier. So in the world of never-ending, growth in affiliate revenues, I think is, I'm sad to say, likely behind us unless we really can innovate with new products on S5 and such. So for us, how we choose to compete is to focus on what we call our key verticals. So we're in the women's business with WW Movies, with North Network, Cosmo. We're in the kids business, obviously, with our suite of existing and soon-to-be acquired kids assets. And we're also in the family business where we kind of target on YTV Prime and on ABC Spark and on CMT, parents and kids watching together. And we're great when we don't do sports, we don't do news, we have a couple of conventional TV stations, but we just stick to our knitting. And we try to compete, the old-fashioned way, by driving ratings and monetizing ratings on those commercial networks. That's our growth in Canada, really, I think, is through airtime. And we do have one leg of the stool, which my good friends here don't have, and that's our international kids business. So we sell to 150 countries around the world. We've had a series of voice action hits for Beyblade and Bakugan. We're coming up the next one using co-production treaties with Japan and other countries. So that's a large business market. It was a $25 billion market, the kids market globally. If we just get a little piece of that, it helps go a long way. So that's kind of how we think of our place in the kind of universe that is Canada.
And we glazed over one of the issues, Kevin mentioned it, but I think it's really important that the advertising market in Canada is not that robust enough.
Yes.
And why producers should care about that is that we have conditions of license that we have to spend X amount of our gross revenues against Canadian production. So as our advertising goes down, that percentage goes down as well. And for anybody that's got relatives in the advertising business, you should be reminding them that the best and most efficient way to advertise and hit mass audiences is still television. And I think advertisers get the shiny object syndrome when they go, oh, look, Facebook is really good. Well, when was the last time you actually clicked on a Facebook ad? As opposed to, can you miss an ad in the Super Bowl? Can you miss an ad in a Blue Jays game? Can you miss an ad in America? What's that dancing show again?
Lots of them.
Yeah. And in the Grammys, those are must-see events that advertising is still, that's the most effective way to reach audiences.
But surely your marketing strategies must be evolving somewhat in this landscape. Kevin?
Well, the marketing strategies,
In terms of promoting
I would call it the monetization strategies have to evolve. I think that as advertising fragments, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the unique nature of the TV ad market in Canada that makes it really challenging, but we do have to look to other sources of revenue, subscriber, and I think producing content. I think producing and owning more of our content, whether it's leveraging some of the back-end value that's created or international markets, I think that has to be something that we are increasingly spending time on that we weren't spending time on 2 years ago. But I will say, to piggyback a bit on Scott's point, in my 3 years in this role, I've been shocked to see how leaky, if you will, our ad market is. Almost half of the television viewing that occurs in Canada doesn't get monetized by a Canadian broadcaster. And I think that this is something that I hope, and we've had a lot of work on vertical integration and on consolidation with the regulator. But I think there's an opportunity to modernize some of our structure. The current broadcasting structure was a outcome of creating an industry that supported the deployment of cable in the 80s and to a vast country where we wanted high adoption rates of cable and the capital costs of deploying cable was very expensive. So we wound up allowing in a lot of U.S. Specialty channels. We allow in a lot of U.S. super channels. The rebroadcast of the U.S. networks is something else, distant signals. And all of these things create eyeball bleed, where we don't have eyeballs that get monetized. As a consequence, the ad market per capita in Canada is about half what it is in the US on television. And I think it's time now. Cable has been deployed, has done well. The demand for that is plenty. I think we need to go back and look at a lot of our broadcast structure. For those who frequently will throw out that they think simultaneous substitution is a solution for US rebroads, that's a totally misguided view. It doesn't solve half of the problem. It's kind of like I produce cars, and this is a pretty crude, extreme example, but I don't think it's far off. I manufacture cars, you're gonna hijack my trucks with the cars on them and steal half of them and say, hey, you're really lucky I'm letting you keep half. That's kind of what SimSub does, is it says, I'm gonna steal half your market, but I'll let you keep half. What we do as broadcasters is no different than any other English-speaking market around the world. We go to Hollywood, we buy content, we air the content in prime time, we supplement it with a lot of homegrown content, and then we subsidize the cost of producing news. And we're no different than broadcasters in other English-speaking markets, except one thing, the rebroadcast of US signals.
It's not just the US signals, although it's interesting, the distant signal problem. You've got a lot of people in Calgary and Edmonton, particularly, it's an interesting market. They watch a lot of Eastern time television. They shift time, and if they're watching off the US affiliate, they're not getting Canadian commercials half the time. And we're eating our own revenue by supplying all of our distance signals to all the different consumers via cable and by satellite. And that's probably costing the industry anywhere from $100 to $150 million a year. So, and in an age of VOD, and do you really need to be able to watch the distant signals anymore? I don't think you do. It's an interesting challenge.
What about monetizing online content? Is anyone getting close to a business model to make it worth your while? I mean, you have to do it, obviously, but are you making any money on it?
I mean, first of all, online advertising, typically what I see happen is when an ad is aired on linear television, let's call it $1 of value. When that same program runs non-linear on a catch-up VOD, and if you catch the PPM tones in it, if they get picked up, it's worth about a dime because of the CPMs on digital. And we've really seen the erosion of CPMs in the last couple of years. When it goes to mobile, it's probably a penny. And so yes, there is a exploding mobile advertising market, but it's exploded to a penny from that dollar. So we're getting ad revenue, and we love the ad revenue that we get digitally, but it's not a good trade-off. We are very, very hopeful that we can build a robust enough TV Everywhere product that what will happen is people will start to increase their subscription of specialty channels, again, start to buy bigger packages because of satisfying all their needs from that, and churn on cable, cord cutting and cord shaving will be impacted positively from TV Everywhere. And then I think the last thing is that really only Sportsnet world has done is try getting some revenue direct from the consumer, and I think that's something that will be played with.
Yeah, you got to be careful how you play with that because you don't want to upset the ecosystem either. We price the Sportsnet World product at significantly more direct to consumer than we would if you bought it as a bundle on cable or satellite. And I think we'll all be playing with pricing models around that as to how that works, because Netflix at $8, you can argue whether it's a great value, but as Kevin said, and if you pay $8 for Discovery or $8 for FX or $8 for OLN, we'd all be buying the champagne every night.
Just to touch on monetizing, if part of your question was in around the notion of website, monetizing website traffic and all that kind of stuff, one thing that I think has become increasingly evident is if you're not in the top 5, if you're not TSN or Sportsnet.com, if you're not way up there, no one has any business in making original content for some website that's number 18 or 20 or 35. You're just burning money. So I think we're taking a much harder look at, it's kind of the same vein as this notion of where's the value of social media, where's the tipping point from a threshold investment point of view. It's like we think our websites are really there to serve our linear service, and trying to sell ads against them, in our case at least, probably not good use of our time and resources. And the flip side of social media, we're trying to understand what's the right investment level to use that to drive traffic back to our linear services. So from our perspective, at least as a smaller player with the scale, it makes more sense for us to kind of be really sort of rigid about how we make those investments. So we can add value where we can add.
I think, Marcia, other means of monetizing will happen over time. As more and more traffic gets viewed over an IP platform, one of the things Netflix has done brilliantly is their data mining and the big data approach to what their consumers are doing. And being able to both promote programs, to have recommendation engines, and even to drive your production is off of that feedback loop and the understanding of your consumer base. We really can't do that in linear delivery today, but as more and more viewing happens on IP, then I think that'll be very exciting. I think that, you know, the dynamic ad insertion and behavioral targeting has been the next big thing coming tomorrow for the last 15 years.
It's not nothing there dynamic ad insertion. Is there there? You guys, you did Black Mirror or something? Did you do that?
No, we haven't done much with it yet.
No. So if you make any money on dynamic ad insertion?
Well, no, we really, the technology just doesn't allow you to do it. The thing about television is the scale and the reach of the audience, and dynamic ad insertion to a small audience can't be monetized. But if we could deliver, you know, the 3.5 million viewers that Big Bang delivers and deliver those 3.5 million with targeting, then I do believe the CPMs for those would go higher. I will say the dirty little secret that I wrestle with, and so this is, if the CPMs go up for that really well-targeted audience, what about the ones that aren't targeted? It could wind up being a bit of a zero-sum game, or even not even zero.
The problem with dynamic ad insertion, I think, is it's geographically targeted. And what advertisers want, they don't want necessarily somebody who lives in Lethbridge. Maybe the Lethbridge Ford dealer does. But what they really want is a certain psychographic, they want a certain demographic, and that's almost impossible with dynamic ad insertion. Just on the online monetization model, I think where we're starting to see some traction, and I think Kevin probably is as well, is around premium content and bundling against all platforms. We had a lot of success with it on The Bachelor, where we were doing multi-platform sales. We had some success with Canada's Got Talent. We obviously have some success around sports with that, where if you want to buy the TV asset, then you've got to buy the other assets as well.
Well, sports it's a whole other ballgame. Sorry. Very, very bad time. Before, I do want to get to audience questions in a couple of minutes, so I do want to talk about terms of trade. Is there a possibility that the terms of trade might be renegotiated? And if so, what could we see?
I think the terms of trade has to be renegotiated. I don't think the regulator has to stop holding a gun to our heads around it. I think the terms of trade is a good base, but it's ultimately flawed because our business is changing hourly, and we need to be able to change with it. I'll give you a great example. Two of the biggest pilots that were made in Hollywood this year, or the ones that had a lot of buzz, were Beverly Hills Cop and the one from Fox, Baxter. Neither of them got picked up because CBS went to the two studios, Sony and Fox, and said, if we're going to put money against this and promote this, we want to have part ownership. And the two studios said, screw you, we're taking 100% ownership. Well, they've now got 100% ownership of a show that's not on air, which is not necessarily great. Now, put that in the Canadian system. We did a show that we're very proud of this year called Seed. That didn't quite do the ratings we would like, but we believed in the show, and we renewed it. And by renewing it, we triggered a U.S. sale, we triggered an international sale, and yet, by the terms of trade, we get to participate in that not at all, or if at all, about that much. So how much easier would that decision have been made is if we were truly partners with the producer, if we really truly had a back end, if we really truly were invested in the success of it. And I think that is where we have to go. There are lots of little things about the terms of trade that I don't think work, but if we're going to be truly partners with the producers, it's got to change.
I'll just jump on that too. I want to echo that comment. We have kind of two principles that we espouse in regard to this. I mean, in our case, as I mentioned on that before, we've been producing for 40 years in the kids space. Original programming is a critical part of our schedule. We embrace the production, emphatically. Number one, we believe strongly that the best producers should be bigger. It comes back to scale. So, we don't need, I think 400 independent producers in Canada. We need to get bigger and better, all of us. And the second one is, and I think we both made comments, but just to put a fine point on it, we believe conceptually we have to better align the economic interests between the broadcasters and their producers. So, you know, we work with, to make a show a big hit in Canada, I do believe that there should be a back end that can accrue to the broadcasters in Canada so we can all put more money back into the system again. So it kind of, it's not an inconsistent approach, and it's not necessarily, you know, the evil empire here. It's just about better economic alignment to support the growth and the health and sustainable competitive positioning of our industry in Canada. So those are our two comments on that.
Before Kevin says something, I think
One
one
of
of
the
the
things to say that I'm not saying.
Look, the money that we would make as a partner on international distribution and format rights would all get back into our gross revenue, which gets taxed at 23 to 30% on CPE. So it would keep getting reinvested back into the industry.
I think a lot of work was done, and so I think the framework of the terms of trade that we've been happy with largely. I think as far as what might get tweaked whenever we renew it, I'll leave that to the experts. Corey Coe, who's here, and a lot are going to talk to her, and Phil King will be here as far as what we want to do. I will say that we've been, partly because we believe that we may not be at an economic tipping point, that the extremes of U.S. programming, you either have something you lose a lot of money on or you make a lot of money on. They're very extremes. And so when we compare a decent Canadian program to the bottom half of the U.S. programs, you know, we're always really happy. And so we're just trying to buy fewer bottom halves and replace those with Canadian programs.
Just by the hits.
Yeah, just by the hits is a good strategy. And so, but we do work really hard. You know, Motive is a great example of a show that we were able to fund it ourselves in working with our production partners to get the show off the ground, demonstrate a great first season, then deliver, instead of a pilot to a U.S. network, deliver an entire first season for them to make a buy decision. They wound up running it because one of the things we hate about getting a U.S. network on board is then we promote a show, we get behind it, we unlock the funding, we really work with the producers and the creators to make it something we believe in, and then we're a slave to the U.S. network's schedule. And it might get bounced around, it might get thrown in a time slot that we hate, it might be up against something we hate. It doesn't allow an audience to build in a time slot. So Motive is a great example of something where we said, let's get it off the ground ourselves, and then the U.S. network is running it after us. They're running it this summer, we ran it in last winter. It's brand new next year.
Boy, I hope there's nobody in this room who still believes that Canadian broadcasters are not committed to Canadian content. Because I would give Kevin a huge pat on the back. Motive debuted after the Super Bowl. We got great promotion. We're giving up U.S. simulcast for our Canadian content. We believe in it. I think Kevin believes in it. I think Shaw believes in it. I think Doug believes in it. And if anybody thinks we're being disingenuous on that, just take a look at the slot that Motive got after the Super Bowl.
So I think, so just a full circle in terms of trade, I think it was a good first step. I think there's opportunities for us all to have more of a conversation about how to make it better. And I don't know if we're going to get this one, so I'm going to preempt the question.
Go for it.
It's related. I think one of the uniquely Canadian, one of the uniquely Canadian realities is our co-production treaty mechanism. I think that's a huge opportunity for all of us to embrace in a strategic manner. I think there are more than 50 countries where we have a co-pro treaty structure. It effectively means that based on the point system, you can trigger funding benefits from both the partner country and Canada. It's designated as CanCon, so it's exhibited, on a time based on whatever our CLLs are. In the kids space, we've done a lot of that over the years, I mentioned Canada and others. But I think there's a huge opportunity for us to, this is part of looking outward as an industry, is let's get to know other players out there around the world, be they broadcasters and producers such as themselves, because there's a lot of good ideas out there. So corporate treaties give us a chance to tick all the Canadian content boxes, to have a fairly favorable funding reality, and to get some new creative insights from the partner. I think it's a great mechanism that we should support.
Indeed. Okay, we do have to get to audience questions. I'm sure there'll be some great ones. There are apparently a couple of people with microphones who can get to you so we can hear your question. There's one of them. His name's Scott. Does anyone have a question?
Got one over here.
lot of us were out there this morning. One of the great things about Banff is that we always get up earlier than we want to on Sunday. And we go out for the morning walk this morning. I saw Scott and his wife this morning in a driving rainstorm, and you come back and you talk about the great view you saw out there in the mountains. And while I was out there with so many of you, I was thinking about public policy. And the question that I wanted to ask, and if I could frame it, we've seen a lot of discussions that touch upon the role of government in what we do. We've seen the regulator adopt a consumer-first perspective, and that's resulted in decisions such as the value for signals decision, the local program improvement fund decision. The long and the short of it is less. We have governments across the country, both federally and provincially, examining closely funding mechanisms, and it's not lost on me that Valerie is an important aspect of that. I'm introducing you today. And we have governments asking themselves, okay, you guys are in a pretty good position now, you're competing, you're doing all kinds of great stuff. So maybe we should be looking at the problems from a fiscal perspective of government and spending. And in the context of governments having to find less spending, maybe tax credits will start going away, or maybe some of the supports of various agencies will start going away. Maybe we'll start asking consumers to give less in a variety of ways that they do now.
Okay, is there a question?
What are your, the question is, you're good. The question is, how important is public policy? For example, things like the tax credit system to your business.
I'll start. It's absolutely vital. There's no question that we're a small country with 30 to 33 million population and with 10 or 11 million cable households compared to the U.S. Without that structure and without it as robust, frankly, as it is today, I think it would be impossible to produce a motive, a saving hope, a flashpoint, and a seed and shows that we're doing. So I think it's critical. Look, I think that for as frequently as we are critical of the regulatory framework, there's no question in my mind that the origins of our current regulatory system and the drivers of that remain today. That if we are going to have a uniquely Canadian voice, and if we're going to nurture the important Canadian cultural differences that we have, and if we're going to support local news, if we're going to support everything that we do and provide with a Canadian perspective, that we have to have a framework. We have to have a framework for the whole industry that either encourages or mandates or incents that. And so I think that all of those reasons remain today. And I think we're just too small of a country right next door to the behemoth for it to happen organically without that.
Thank you.
I was speaking this, I'll kind of narrow into the kids' point of view for a second. I think the tax credit, Valerie mentioned in her opening remarks about the Canada focus and the comments here, the kids' business. The kids' industry, I think, is a feather in our cap, which we should all, I think, promote more. The shows that the kids producers make are sold to almost all broadcasters around the world. Canada has a phenomenal reputation in the world of animated kids content and live action, like our friends at Mr. Young and others. So I think that industry is supported by the tax credits, but also, it creates exports, real meaningful exports. It creates jobs. It creates, I keep mentioning, a sustainable competitive advantage. I mean, these things are all things that require the funding of government, and it creates human capital that I think is essentially valuable. So the notion of fiscal focus versus a policy focus is one that I think is quite scary.
And can I add something, Marcia? I'm sorry, but Gary raised something that mentioned this consumer focus and everything. I've got to tell you, there's times lately that I'm really scratching my head because I'm a new Canadian. I'm a dual citizen. I've been here for 8 years now, and so I've lived on both sides of the border. And I got to tell you, every single thing I buy in Canada is more expensive than what I bought in the U.S., except two things: cable TV and wireless service. Eggs are more expensive, milk is more expensive, books are more expensive, cars are more expensive, houses are more expensive, my taxes are higher, you know, and so everything that I buy. So I do think sometimes I scratch my head that holy cow, petrol, fuel is way more expensive. I scratch my head that holy cow, we have zeroed in on really the two things. Now, wireless you can always debate, but I can know firsthand, and the studies are very clear, that a robust package of TV services are 10, 15, 20% less expensive in Canada than they are in the US.
I think with
Consumers are doing pretty well in our industry.
without some sort of regulatory framework that protects and helps subsidize us, we're going to have a very empty room here in a few years. And why is it that there's so much talk in the press about subsidizing the entertainment business? And my friends over at the CDC, there are lots of U.S. multinationals that get tax incentives to work here. The auto industry gets lots of tax incentives to work out of Canada. Why is it that it's such a hot button that we're helping to create an indigenous entertainment industry that is a $6.5 to $7 billion industry? I don't understand why that ends up in your newspaper and other newspapers so often. Nobody seems to complain when Ford gets tax incentives to put a plant somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you, it was a big issue during the BC election, which was just held, that the party that insists on not increasing tax incentives didn't win that election for producers. Is there another question from the audience?
A shorter one, hopefully?
Yes. I think there's a hand up over there. We have a microphone over there. Okay.
Sean Newbury. I've done a lot of work on the broadcast side and the ad side, and I don't, from the CPM perspective, I still have trouble understanding why an eyeball is worth one thing on television and another thing on my mobile phone or on a computer. If you could just speak to that, especially when, you know, the measurement tools are, as you say, in the dark ages on the TV
I
side.
think to be really simple, it's about inventory and it's about the scarcity of inventory on television. In a primetime nationally televised program, there's a scarcity of inventory and availability, drives up CPMs. Online inventory, ad inventory right now, there is a massive oversupply of online ad inventory, which has driven down the prices. I think that's at the root of it.
But I think it's incumbent upon us and our sales departments to say that there's a difference between buying a 15-second pre-roll on the piano playing cat on YouTube and a 15-second pre-roll on Motive or on Seed. Yeah, we need to be able to see, yeah, you can buy any type of video ad you want on the internet, and it could get thrown in a bulk, an ad exchange that goes in front of YouTube content that gets some views. But you want quality content, you want engaged content, we should be holding the line and saying, hey, you don't want to buy it, go ahead, buy the other stuff, but we have quality content.
We have time for one more question. Who wants to ask that last question?
I think we should put it in an ad button.
Yes.
I think there's another hand over there.
She's saying wrap it up.
Oh, you're saying wrap it up. Can you come up with a question? Okay. You know what? I will wrap it up. Sorry about that. Oh, can I ask someone? Can I have one more question? No. All right. I'm a slave to her. I would like to ask each of you, just for 30 seconds, to send people out with an inspirational message about what you're looking for and how, just to wrap it up, what's on your mind right now and what should people be thinking about over the next 3 days?
Inspirational messages, let's go get a drink. That's the
I think we all believe in content, and we all believe that there's we may have some challenges on the financial model, but we're going to solve them, and we're going to continue to invest in good content.
Kevin, Scott, Doug, thank you very, very much.